Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 8th EBERSPÄCHER Luge World Cup here in PyeongChang, South Korea. This was the site of the 2018 Olympic Winter Games and more recently the 2024 Youth Olympic Winter Games. We've got women's singles action today, followed by mixed singles and then doubles on what I think is one of the most entertaining tracks on the planet. Yesterday, we saw Wolfie Kindle make history, becoming only the 4th athlete in history to win gold in singles and doubles on the same weekend. And then in the women's doubles, we saw Jessica Degenhardt and Cheyenne Rosenthal of Team Germany bring back a gold to join their silver medal from last week's World Championships in Whistler. So whether you're a luge expert or completely new to the sport of luge and somehow you've ended up on this channel, welcome. It's lovely to have you along for the ride. My name's Mark Hatton, and my co-commentator today, we're really lucky to have Veronica Ravena of Argentina. She's a two-time Olympian here in PyeongChang and then latterly in Beijing. Veronica, welcome to the commentary booth.
Thank you, Tim. It's great to be here and to be here in Korea nonetheless. The track that made me an Olympian in the first place, it'll always hold a special place in my heart, for sure.
That first Olympics is pretty special, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll never forget that feeling after the first one when you come down and your friends and family are there and no one can take that away. That's it. Olympian for life.
And when you first arrived at the track here in Korea, I mean, it's very different to other tracks on the tour. What were your first impressions?
Don't say 10 or 11.
I feel like I was quite young, so I kind of looked at it and I was like, this doesn't look so bad. It's big corners, nice straightaways, but little did I know, it's a lot trickier than it looks for sure.
And we're going to have you talk us down the track in just a little bit, but we're just saying Ashley Farquharson warming up here. I've got to say the warm-ups have changed a lot over recent years, haven't they?
Yeah, especially the American team. They do some pretty cool warm-ups. I've seen them while they're doing these crisscrosses. One of the coaches will be yelling out corners, and they'll have to say whether they're left and right. It really keeps them on their toes, and I mean, I'm sure there's lots of studies behind it, but it looks like a lot, very hard.
And there we see Yuliana Tunitska of Ukraine, formerly world junior champion, and someone that's made the step up to singles on the senior tour, make it look pretty easy.
Yeah, she's done amazing ever since she's come. She's really a force to be reckoned with, especially in Sigulda. So it'll be cool to see how she does here.
Absolutely. So when you came here first, I mean, you'd come off the back of being a youth Olympian in 2016. That was your first taste of the Olympics, I guess. Coming to the big show here, that must have been incredible, especially coming from a small nation like Argentina.
Yeah, it was, honestly, I don't really know the words to describe it. I was racing juniors. I was in the Junior World Championships in Altenburg, I remember, right before I flew out to Korea. I had crashed and broke my sled in the finish, so I was on a new sled. And the first time, as soon as I got off the track, Natalie Geisenberger was there, and I was just in awe. I had raced the qualification races before with her, but to be there in the Olympics and get off the plane and have her standing right by my side, it was definitely a wake-up call. It wasn't the little league anymore, but
yeah, I can absolutely see that, and such a great champion. Well, we had track records yesterday in the Nations Cup. We had Tucker West throw down a start record from the Nations Cup. We got track records in women's doubles, but that was more due to the fact that there hadn't been a women's doubles race here before. But still, some incredible performances there in women's doubles. It's looking pretty warm out there. I haven't seen the temperatures yet, but it's not looking similar to the temperatures we saw back in 2018.
Yeah, when we were racing, it was, I think, as cold as I'd ever been. My mom always jokes. She says Canada's like a fridge, but Korea felt like a freezer. And it doesn't look like they're shivering out there. They're just in coats, so definitely some warmer weather. But, I mean, even in Whistler, it was not too bad. And we crushed a lot of track records. So I think the sleds have come a long way in the past 7 years, and I wouldn't be surprised if those records go out the window.
It's always good to see a track record and very fun to announce. So here we have a wonderful graphic of the track. I mean, this is what you first saw. Tell us a little bit about the track.
So it's quite windy. It definitely does kind of feel like a dragon once you're standing there, for sure. I don't know. I don't really know too much.
I mean, those key curves. I mean, what was the curve you were really thinking about?
Like everyone, I struggled with 9, but I remember, the top corners, corner 4 and 5, you really get cooking. You don't realize it, but they drop quite a bit. And then 15 going up the uphill, the last corners, they're quite hard.
Okay, so here we have a wonderful point of view video. Just talk us down the track here, Veronica.
So there's some nice, quite big corners, and then that was 9, and this little 10, you can't quite see it, but it's not straight. It doesn't line up whatsoever, and it's also uphill, so you can't do too much, but you have to make sure you're in a nice straight line. And then here going into 15 up to 16, that was a really big, steep uphill corner. So again, you have to make sure that you're straight and you're not steering too much.
Does it seem like 7 years ago?
It really does not feel like it's been 7 years, but it also feels like, how has it only been 7 years?
Absolutely, I can see that. Well, that's Veronica giving us the expert view in the Olympics. We see the air temperature out there, a massive plus 6.4 degrees. We were absolutely right, and ice temperature at -2. We can obviously expect that to get colder as the night draws in, but that is a warm track, Veronica, and I'm wondering just how long that spritz is gonna last and be effective with those warm temperatures.
Yeah, I remember for us, the spritz really helped us out of 9. It gave us that little bit of extra grip. And I remember as the more people that went by and kind of smoothed out that spritz, it made it much, much harder. And especially now with the warm temperature, I think it'll help the top couple sleds just get that little bit extra stick down the chicane. So it'll be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So 25 athletes in our field from all over the planet. As you can see, Ireland's Elsa Desmond there. We have a large Asian contingent from Korea and China. But kicking it off for us today from Romania will be Corina Buzătoi of Romania. She's just come straight from Whistler, where she had a lovely race. Very, very nice slider. I've been really impressed with the Romanian program.
Yeah, honestly, Corina, on a good day, she makes me feel quite nervous. She's an amazing slider. She's really fast when she's on her A game. In Whistler, she had a couple runs where as she had that run in our race, she would have easily been in the top 15. So we just got to hope she does a nice, clean run, and I think she did on Nations Cup if she finished. She's one of the first sliders to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful slider. We've got some very interesting little side stories to this World Cup. Madeleine Egler of Austria is currently our leader in the World Cup. So she needs a win today, or for Julia Taubitz of Germany to come 9th or worse to secure the title today. Now, Julia's got to win or finish ahead of Madeleine Egler to stay in contention. So it's absolutely up for grabs, but it could all be decided today before next week's World Cup final in Beijing. So here we see at the top of the track, Corina Buzătoi from Romania, just going through her ritual.
Yeah, and it's quite a short ramp from what I remember. Us girls were quite used to the nice, flat, long ramps where you just have kind of time to think about what you're going to do. But here it's some quick paddles and set it up right before the women's first corner.
So, Corina Buzătoi of Romania sets us off in this 8th EBERSPÄCHER Luge World Cup here in PyeongChang, South Korea. Buzatoy, as we said earlier, straight off the plane from Whistler. All of these athletes will be going on to the race in Beijing next week, which promises to be an absolutely wonderful race, site of the 2022 Olympics. But right here on the site of the 2018 Olympics, we see our first exit, curve 9, down the Dragon's Tail, and Buzatoy managing with that little power slide to get the sled back under control.
Honestly, that little power slide, it wasn't too bad. I would have been very happy with that in my Olympics run. She's putting down a nice and solid run. Little mistakes, but 47.3.
Solid times there from Buzatoy. It's about a second and a bit off the track record. And with these warm temperatures, it's debatable whether we'll get to see a track record today, or at least on this first run. But Buzatoy and Curve 9 just providing the entertainment that we saw back in 2018. I remember being told that this track, for people that were new to luge, which is a lot of an Olympic television audience, was just so full of action and such a great camera shot, looking back up into Curve 9, that this created a lot of converts.
Yeah, she had a pretty clean run. I mean, she looks decently happy there. And now Juliana Tunitska, I believe this is her first time here, and I think a lot of people don't realize we don't get a lot of runs before we're racing. I think they had 9 training runs, and my guess is at least 2 of these were done from a lower start height for safety.
So for the women, that's 14 curves. You've got to figure out, and 9 training ones to do it. As Juliana Tunitska of Ukraine drops into the track, let's see how competitive she is on the start. She is by 4 thousandths of a second. Yeah, I think for all the tour, it's been quite a baptism of fire coming back to a completely new track and not having a training week before.
Yeah, no training week, and the jet lag on top of that. It's not easy, but I mean, they did amazing. And 9, that was pretty
Yes,
amazing.
Tunitska threading the needle through 9 there down the Dragon's Tail, 113 kilometers now, nice curve 13. Curve 13 was giving a few of our male sliders yesterday a few problems. The women were handling it much better. 5 thousandths of a second to the good in the green as Tunitska stretches her lead. Let's see if it goes past that 5 thousandths of a second to 12 thousandths of a second. Tiny margins in the sport of luge, especially here at the PyeongChang track. A track that rewards consistency, Veronica.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to put down, for the top 20 girls, it's going to be 2 runs. For the Olympics, it was 4. And everyone can be so hit or miss out of 9. It's a tiny little bit of movement, and it can all go downhill so fast. So I think it won't be necessarily who's the fastest. It'll be who can make it top to bottom clean 2 runs in a row.
So Tunitska, our new leader, with a 47.356, and we go to Tove Kohala of Sweden. The Swedes have been, for me, a revelation this year. They've just gone from strength to strength. That whole team is looking like it's having its breakthrough year.
I'm super proud of all 3 of them. They've been absolutely crushing it this year. I know they've been training really hard. Tova's boyfriend is actually also their fitness trainer, and he puts so much time and effort into their start training plans, and it's all coming together for them at the perfect time, the year before the Olympics. They can take this momentum. We'll see how Tova, another nice chicanes.
Yes, I think any of us would take that curve 9, little early onto 13, but not causing any huge problems. And into the green for Kohala. If it's your first time watching luge, when we say into the green, look at that clock in the bottom right-hand corner. You'll see it goes green or red. If it's green, you're doing well. If it's red, you're doing slightly less well. As Tove Kohala goes into the lead by a massive 1.5 tenths ahead of Tunitska. Yeah, what I was really impressed about on that run from Tova was the position on the sled. Really brave position for someone that hasn't been to this track and trying to find every bit of speed. I mean, look at that body position.
Yeah, we're quite good friends, and she'll be the first person to tell you that she's not afraid to risk it. If it's risk it or don't get a second run, she'd rather, I think, flip, but no, she'd pushed as much as she could than come out and just be average. So it's really nice to see an athlete that is willing to push the limits to try to be better.
And that's what we saw yesterday. I mean, really rolling the dice, pushing the limits. Wolfie Kindle's run was on the edge the whole way down in the men's race. And I think we can expect to see exactly the same, more of the same here in this women's EBERSPÄCHER Luge World Cup here in PyeongChang. So into the track, dropping into the track goes Nina Zergler. Famous name in luge, the Zergler name, as we all know, and straight into the lead by 19 thousandths of a second.
Yeah, I think Nina is trying to make up for Whistler Champs. I know it wasn't what she wanted, but I mean, she's having a pretty clean run. Again, I think another one of these first times here, and it's amazing to see how well they're doing. Let's see how she does exit 9. They're doing a lot better than I can honestly say we did in our Olympics.
And we're seeing some really great consistency here from, dare I say it, the lower order sliders before we get into the seeded group. And this bodes well for the seeded group over there. A little early on to 16, that costs a fair bit of time because it's uphill. But Nina Zergler into second place there, just dropping back behind Kahala by just almost 400ths of a second. That's Nina Zergler of Italy.
Yeah, I mean, these first 5 sliders, they would have been the top 5 out of what we call the Nations Cup. So usually the top 5, I would say, are a bit of contenders to the seeded group for sure.
Well, they're right on the cusp of the seeded group, aren't they, when they're winning Nations Cup or touching that Nations Cup podium these days?
Yeah, you can sometimes be just 1 point away and have to race Nations Cup, and that can be quite frustrating. But yeah, for sure, they're challenging them. And
well, I guess you could say it could actually be an advantage to be a high-level Nations Cup slider on a track you've never been to, just to get another run under race conditions, as opposed to a seeded group training run.
Yes, though I think lately the seeded group training, I mean, they get a fresh spritz, and there's only 12 of them, so they all get pretty good ice, but the mentality of a race is definitely not there in the seeded group training, whereas it is for sure in the Nations Cup.
So here goes Hannah Prock with our biggest start yet. Absolutely crushing the previous starts that have come before her today. Prock very much in the green by 1.5 tenths. Prock looking very comfortable in these top curves. Another athlete who I would say has almost certainly not been to this track. And beautiful body movement there out of 9, looking like it's a home track.
Yeah, and Hannah, she took some time away from racing. She had an injury that she had to rehab, and you know, it's not easy when you take the first half of the season off, but she's come back and won the Nations Cup in Oberhof, and
wow,
7 tenths ahead.
Yes, 7 tenths. We've got a new leader, ladies and gentlemen. Hannah Prock of Austria, ahead by 7 tenths of a second now in luge. One of the few Olympic sports timed to 1,000ths of a second, 7 tenths of a second. That's significant.
That's a pretty big lead. I want to see who's going to catch her.
So Hannah Prock, having tasted victory this weekend already in Nations Cup, standing on the top step of the podium. I love that little weight shift just by, I guess, corner 10. It was really nice to see a great camera shot there coming out of curve 9 of our new leader, Hannah Prock.
Yeah, she's a well-seasoned athlete. She knows what to do. You can tell. Doesn't matter what track you throw at her. She just crushes it.
So our first Latvian of the day, Kendia Apajod. And again, the Latvians in the last 4 to 5 years have just gone from strength to strength as well, haven't they? I mean, their talent identification, I think, is absolutely great. We see that in their junior ranks. And although Kendia is one of the more experienced athletes on their team, it's great to see some more younger athletes coming up into this Latvian.
Yeah, whichever athletes they put on the sled, we saw that in doubles last year. They kept changing doubles teams, and they just kept winning. So clearly their system is good and strong, and they know what they're doing. And so whatever athlete they put on the sled is dominates.
And it's looking like Apioda falling behind here a little bit, but I think this softer ice out of 9 as Apioda crosses the line into second place, just back from Proc by 1.5 tenths. I'm wondering if this softer ice, what's the ice temperature? I think minus 2.5. And I'm wondering if that is making 9 just that little bit more friendly if you don't have an absolutely optimal line, just having that slightly softer ice surface to play with.
Yeah, it must be. I remember coming out of 9, I actually had my father standing in a very specific point. I could even point it out where you had to steer out, and it was an inch more or an inch less, and you just knew you were going to be sliding sideways all the way till 11.
So there's our top 4, Proc to Apioda to Kahala, and in 4th position at this early point of the proceedings, Nina Zergler. So moving back up to the top of the hill, or almost to the top of the hill, is our second Italian of the day. This is Sandra Robacher.
Sandra's come off of some rough times with her shoulders. I know it gets mentioned probably every race, but it's incredible to pull starts the way she's pulling.
Well, I was going to say 18 thousandths of a second to the good there on the start. That's the fastest start we've seen so far today from Robacher as she drops into the red, though, having made a couple of tiny mistakes in the top section.
They're all sticking it pretty well through 9-10, but Hannah was more than perfect. It was perfect. Her sled was perfect. So I think it's going to take quite a bit to dethrone her, but Sandra's been quite close.
Just hitting early into but crosses the finish line. Let's hope she's okay. Just that's that tricky 15 that.
And as you can see by her sliding down, it's quite steep uphill. It's really, really a steep uphill up to 15. And so that just gives you that tiny bit of control, and she tapped that wall, and there's just no pressure holding you down into the ice, unfortunately.
Absolutely. We saw 15 being a real problem yesterday. And after that very, very nice curve 9, obviously carrying a lot of speed, she had a little problem in 13. But just coming out a little early, just hitting that right-hand wall and just face-planting into 16, which in itself is very uncomfortable. Let's hope she's okay. That was a little bit of drama, first bit of drama of the day, Sandra Robacher. And we're saying about her shoulder injuries, I mean, to pull starts like that is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I know she's been struggling with her shoulder for quite some time, and she's had multiple surgeries, and I mean, it's incredible, their rehab systems, and clearly whatever they're doing is working.
So, looks like Sandra Robacher's okay. She's up and walking. That's great to see. So, we come back up to another Italian. This is Verena Hoffer, another South Tyrolean.
And you can see, I appreciate the shot on the handles. I was told by a lot of friends and families they thought it was super grippy, but our handles are actually quite slippery. You got to really grip them with your hands.
Yeah, that's a good point. And as we have a new leader on the start by a massive 0.04 of a second, Verena Hoffer, the starts are starting to get more lightning fast. Yeah, I mean, it's often the case. Little skid up top there, that's not going to help her cause where it's so flat through that little section before 6. As we go through 8 into 9, let's see how curve 9 is for her. That, I think most people would take that exit.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say I feel like she might be angled too low, which just doesn't give you enough grip by seeing that skid in the top corners. But, I mean, her sled's supposed to be tracking, but she's losing the time at a decent run and coming quite a bit behind at the finish.
Back by almost 8 tenths, Verena Hoffer. That mistake in the top around curve 5-6 really costing her, where it's so difficult to build speed when you make those mistakes up in the top few curves, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a long track, and that little bit, it keeps compounding down, and unfortunately there's not a lot of places on this track, I would say, to find a boost.
We just saw there as well, just bumping early onto 13 as well. We didn't quite see the shot, but that would have made a difference. And we saw 13 become a real bogey curve for some of the athletes yesterday. They found that quite challenging. As we go back up to the top, and Barbara Allmeyer of Austria.
Yeah, another young Austrian, but I mean, the Austrian sleds have been as perfect as they can be this year. So
yeah, the sled program there is just phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, whatever they're cooking with, we want it. Their sleds have been absolutely amazing, and in any track and any conditions, they know how to set them up.
So Allmeyer looking to take down her teammate Proc here, but dropping back. She had just back by 8 thousandths on the start, but that's become 6 hundredths as we go into 9 and into the Dragon's Tail. A little bit of a correction there, but getting away with it again. Back by almost 1.5 tenths.
Yeah, let's see how the rest of her run goes. It goes to show how good Hannah was.
A little early to 15, that's going to send her towards the right wall, so she's going to have to bring it across to 16, so she doesn't go late, and just cutting it out of that steep uphill curve into 3rd place for Barbara Allmeyer, just back by almost 4 tenths of a second.
I would be interested to know how much of it is maybe the track. It is quite warm. It wasn't too humid. I think it was 68% humidity, but in such a long track, you really benefit from being one of the top ones to go.
And we've just had a message saying that Sandra Robacher is in good health after that big faceplant into 16, big crash into 16, so that's good to hear. And she, although she crossed the finish line, it's unlikely she's going to get a second run, but finishing the race at this stage of the season is important, isn't it? Just for those extra points. It's crossing the finish line is everything in this sport.
Yeah, and we were already starting with our Olympic qualifications criteria. So you want to finish in the top 30, otherwise you have extra criteria to get through next year, so every point counts.
So here goes our first German of this Women's EBERSPÄCHER Luge World Cup here in PyeongChang, South Korea. Melina Fischer, and Melina Fischer not wasting any time, moving into the lead off the start by almost 4 hundredths of a second, which again on the start is a huge chunk of time, but that is dropping to just 22 thousandths. So they're losing speed down the track. Let's hope this track is holding up well.
Yeah, Melina, she just tapped that wall. That is
keeping her cool through the Dragon's Tail there, Melina Fischer. As you saw, tapping right, tapping left, but staying calm in that situation, Veronica, I guess that's just imperative.
And she's one of the youngest in the field, but she just it's in her genes. She knows what to do. There's her boyfriend team on at the end.
And
Melina,
into 4th place, Melina Fischer of Germany.
She's been having really good trainings, and just on the races, they haven't been exactly the same. I think she's young. She just needs more races, but we know she can do it, and she normally cleans up on the second run. So I'm excited to see her in the seated group, and I'm excited to see if she can just clean up that little tap on the right wall.
Yeah, Melina Fischer coming 19th in last week's World Championships, so a lot of experience to be gained for this young athlete breaking into this, well, one of the more competitive teams to break into, I should think, on the tour, Team Germany. As we come back to the women's start, and a sparsely populated US team at the moment, only one female athlete in the race, Ashley Farquharson.
Yeah, I think they were just bringing one full team over to the Asia races, and I mean, I'm excited to see Ashley here.
So Ashley in the lead on the start by 1 thousandth of a second. Now straight into the red behind Hannah Proc. So Hannah Proc really throwing down on that first run. That is looking like it's going to hold her in good stead as Farquharson looking to build speed through the bottom of the track.
Yeah, I think Ashley's another one that wasn't here. And we'll see. Oh, that was a really good save.
Again, keeping the cool just as she catches that little fillet on the short wall out of 9. And look, making the bottom section of this track look good. Very early, though, this is going to send her across to the right. She's going to have to push it across to the left, which she does, and crossing the finish line with a 46.652. Just 1.5 tenths back from Hannah Prock, and Ashley Farquharson of the USA sliding into third place.
I think she would be pretty happy with that run. It wasn't perfect, but the time was pretty well up there, and like we said, it's about consistency. It's not necessarily going to be who puts down the fastest single run. It's going to be who can put down 2 clean runs.
Absolutely. Some powerful looking paddles there from Ashley Farquharson. The Americans have a new new start facility in Lake Placid. Have you managed to have a go on this one?
I haven't had a go. They had the start championships there last year. I unfortunately was not a part of that, but it looks like an amazing facility. And they have one ramp that goes each way, which is super beneficial, so you don't need to walk your sled back.
So here goes Madeleine Egler of Austria, trying to make up for the disappointment in Whistler last week, where she came 7th, having been expected to very much trouble the podium. She's had a wonderful season, hasn't she?
So Madeleine, what I quite like to say is she's the only girl who won a medal at these Olympics. She won a 3rd place medal with her team in the team relay. All the other women that we had that medal have bid goodbye to luge.
Is that right?
Yeah, we have Geisy. I mean, we still have Diana, but she's now in doubles. Alex Goth were the other medalists.
So Madeleine Egler dropping back here. She had a little skid out of 9, but I wouldn't think that would have cost her too much, and she handled it incredibly well. Into 2nd place, Madeleine Egler, back from Hannah Prock by just over 1/10 of a second. Yeah, Madeleine Egler having had a wonderful season, having been 1st place in 4 World Cups already this year, and hoping for a 5th today.
In her bib, it says World Cup leader, which means in the overall ranking of all of our races, she's got the most points. So she's really just trying to hold on to that title to win the Gold Globe overall.
Well, and I'll repeat how the numbers are going to work for Madeleine Egler. She needs to win today, and she needs Julia Taubitz of Germany come 9th or worse to finish the to secure the title. Now, Julia Taubitz has got to win, or at least finish ahead of Madeleine Egler, to stay in contention. And talking of one German, up we come to another German athlete. This is Merle Frabel.
She's come off of a silver medal in the World Championships and a gold in the Under-23 World Championships, which is absolutely amazing. She's just going to want to carry that momentum, and you kind of carry that pride with you when you come off of such an amazing race. You feel like you're almost unstoppable, so I'm hoping that she carries that feeling in her heart and just lays down the runs like I know she can do.
Yeah, Merle Frabel's been incredibly impressive. Again, probably a newcomer to this track, but I think that's one of the best curve 9s we've seen so far today from Frabel. Little early to 13, that's not going to hurt too much though, but she does go into the red. Needs to find something special in the bottom part of this track. Only back by 28 thousandths from Proc. This is going to be tight. If she does something special out of 16, she could snatch back, but she doesn't. It's just 75 thousandths back, 700ths of a second. Merle Frabel into 2nd place.
I think that time was pretty amazing, pretty spot on. I would be stoked if I was Merle. Hannah was on fire, so to be 2nd and such a close margin to her, we know that in the next run, Hannah will have to go after Merle, so Merle will get the better ice. And not just small time differences.
I feel the track is not holding up particularly well right now, it looks like. I mean, I think the earlier athletes to go, I think they really benefited from the spritz, and I think possibly with this cold weather, run number 2 will be a little more interesting as it gets a little darker and colder.
Yeah, as athletes, we love the warm weather when we're a little bit nervous because it means softer ice and it's a bit more forgiving, but you need the negative outdoor temperature to really just solidify the ice and make it keep its integrity throughout the whole race.
So our lone Swiss athlete, Natalie Marg, Now, Natalie Marg, hopefully, I haven't seen the singles start list yet, but very hopefully will be in the mixed competition later with Alex Falazzo of Australia. The mixed competition allows athletes from 2 competing nations to form a team as Marg navigates 9 very nicely there into 12. And Natalie Marg looking very, very clean through these bottom sections, a little early to 14. So 15. Decent exit from 15, managed to bring it across to 16. Now this uphill section where so many of our athletes are losing time out of 16. Natalie Marg into 4th place. This first run just back by almost 1.5 tenths. Solid run from Natalie.
Yeah, I mean, Natalie, she's proven she's up there with the best. The boys there in the finish did some kind of signs about her start, so I wonder if maybe she had an issue that we couldn't quite catch from this angle, or if it just wasn't her best start of the week.
It didn't look like a characteristic Natalie Marg start. There wasn't, and I'm wondering if she possibly may be carrying an injury.
She's a powerhouse in the start for sure, so I mean, it could be a little bit of nerves maybe, or I mean, she did amazing in Whistler, so I don't think she's injured, but I mean, you never know what happened that week in Korea.
Yeah, I'm guessing, you know, we're looking 7 years since we last raced here in the Olympic. That's basically a generation of sliders apart, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we had Natalie Geisenberger and Alex Goth who are now, you know, starting their families and building their lives, and 7 years is a long time. So
Lisa Schulte of Austria ahead on the start by 11 thousandths, starting to build that speed down the track as she goes ahead by almost 300ths into curve 9. Lisa Schulte's going to stick this. Yes, she is. Beautiful line from Schulte. Schulte still building speed, up by 300ths of a second into 13. 13 to 14, that's a nice entrance to 14. I like that slightly more middle early entrance. As we go into 15, beautiful peak. Drops down, straight shot into 16. We should be looking at a new leader as she crosses the finish line with just 15 thousandths of a second. Lisa Schulte taking the lead away from her teammate and compatriot Hannah Prock by 15 thousandths of a second. But what a beautiful run. That
was such a beautiful run. I'd be interested to see the breakdown because she slowly kept picking up more and more speed, more and more of a lead, and then in the last corners, she lost a little bit. So I wonder if there was something that happened. Maybe an entrance just wasn't quite on point.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to see that 15, which I think is the best 15 we've seen so far. Today we don't, but that really gave her a straight shot. And I mean, you stood on that catwalk on the side of 15 to 16. It's incredibly steep, isn't it?
Yeah, it's steep, it's tight, and it's not forgiving.
Yeah, you make mistakes going uphill and the time just drips away, doesn't it? So, Anna Beretta, another German, our 16th starter of the day.
Yeah, Anna, she's had a couple good races. I know she's fighting. She's such a fighter, and last season was an amazing season for her, and I know that she's just giving it her all.
Well, giving it her all on the start, definitely. Ahead on the start by 400ths of a second, but straight into the red by 18 thousandths of this 19 split.
She's such a solid slider. Let's see how her 9, again, just taps that wall, and then there's nothing you can do once you hit that right wall and the sled takes that direction.
Well, you've got that little dip, haven't you? After that left contact with the wall, this track just drops away. Another nice 15, but back by 0.4 of a second. Anna Beretta, she's certainly not going to catch Schulte. Anna Beretta into 10th position, back by 0.6 of a second.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but there's not a lot. Like Mark was saying, the track kind of goes down, and you have a blind entrance where because the track drops, you can't really see exactly where you are. So that just makes it that much trickier as well.
Didn't pick up any huge mistakes apart from this in 9, but that's obviously going to cost our athletes. As we see, this is where the track just drops away and can sometimes mean an athlete gets airborne after that left contact, doesn't it?
Yeah, I hope we see Anna's full sled. She has one of her sponsors does the traditional German outfits, and her sled is that, I don't have the word for it, but I'm going to call it a dress. I know it's not a dress.
I can't help you there, I'm afraid.
It's beautiful. Her sled.
Maybe you can answer in the live chat. We've got a live chat on YouTube as Julia Taubitz of Germany drops into the track. Another very fast start for 3:43 for Taubitz, well in the lead at this early section. And Taubitz, as we say, what must Taubitz do today? Well, she has to win or at least finish ahead of Madeleine Egler to stay in contention for the title next week in Beijing, which promises to be an absolutely incredible race. Little skid out of there for Taubitz, just throwing up ice going into 12. That's going to cost her a few problems. Very late into 14 as well. Big loop in 14.
One of the things that I love about Taubitz is, she's not traditionally super tall, not super big, yet she is an absolute powerhouse, which I love seeing stereotypes just destroyed. She's,
absolutely inspirational slider. But today, back by half a second. Now, the ramifications of this, ladies and gentlemen, are that Madeleine Egler could secure the title today. Based upon if Madeleine Egler manages to win and Taubitz finishes 9th or worse, then Madeleine Egler wins the overall title before we reach Beijing.
Yeah, we can see a little bit of disappointment in Julia's eyes. And, we know the Germans. She's going to go up there and she's going to change some things on the sled. And she's just going to come back next run, and it's going to be a night and day. And I think that was the end of our seeded group.
Yes, it was. Yeah, absolutely. Never write off Julia Taubitz, that's for sure. I'm sure she'll put down something quite different to that run. In run number 2, as we come to Hae-sun Young of Korea, our first Korean athlete of the day on home ice. I would say Whistler is your home track, Veronica. What's the feeling of being on home ice?
It's honestly, there's no stress. We were coming up into Whistler, singing songs in the truck. You know these tracks inside and out, and it's just, your body just knows what to do. So we'll see. Hae-sun, she's probably done every possible entrance and exit to every single corner, and her body just knows how to fix it. You don't even really have to think twice about it.
Hae-sun Young putting down a very nice looking run, very clean. Beautiful 15-16 transition. Nice cut towards the finish line on that uphill curve. And into 17th place for Hae-sun Young. Just back by almost a second, but clean, good-looking run.
Yeah, that was a great run. It just goes to show that maybe her sled setup wasn't quite what this track was needing, but it was a clean run in a home ice in front of all your friends and family. Sometimes that's just what you need.
Yes, I can absolutely believe that. And as we see, 15-16. Just had a little bit of right direction, but managed to change the direction to get that cross to 16. As Lisa Schulte still in first place. So, from Ukraine, Olena Shmaha. Olena Shmaha last week in Whistler, coming in 29th place. She'll be hoping to do a little bit better than that this week and get a second run. So in the women's field, the top 20 qualify for run number 2.
And they get a little bit easier this week. Normally there's 30 girls. They have 25 racing today. So
big start from Shmaha. They're 300ths in the lead.
She's a really fast starter. The Ukraine team has made amazing starts.
Okay, Shmaha dropping into the red, losing time down the track. One of the downsides of being a later starter, having to negotiate 9 very late into 12, but managed to push it in, but back by 0.4 of a second, spraying ice into 13. 14, just giving her time to get her breath back and get ready for 15. Little early to 15. That's going to send her towards that right wall, but managed to bring it across. Shmaha crosses the finish line with a 47.741, 1.2 seconds back.
Yeah, she started off pretty strong, and then, I mean, I think it just goes to show the lack of runs that these girls have in the track. As soon as one thing was off her perfect line, she looked a little bit nervous, and, I mean, fair enough. It's a long track, it's a hard track, and you're fighting to get it back on, and sometimes you just don't really know too much how to get it back on if you haven't had that mistake in training. But she looks pretty happy to be done that run and waving to the lovely crowd that all the Koreans are out there.
Well, that's another thing I wanted to ask you. Obviously, we'll talk about the athletes as we have another Korean coming into the track. This is Yoo-bin Shin, a youth Olympian from 2024, again on her home track. But just in a couple of words, the volunteers here during the Olympics, how are they?
They're just amazing. They were so happy to be here. You know, there wasn't anything too big or too small for them. There's just such a sense of hospitality in this country where they want to make sure that you're happy. They want to make sure that you're having a good time. And they love to talk about their culture, which is something.
Yoo-bin Shin, I mean, was that Yoo-bin Shin? This is Kim, isn't it? My apologies. Kim just showing us how to do curve 9 there, when you've done it probably 500 times this season already.
Yeah, I'm sure she's had tons of training here to get ready for this World Cup. Pushing her head back before the final corner, 16.
So that is Soyoon Kim. Sorry, I jumped ahead. Yoo-bin Shin is going to be next. Soyoon Kim, another youth Olympian from Gangwon 2024 on her home track, and this is great for the future. I mean, Wolfgang Staudinger and Maciej Kurowski really building a young team to take over from the older athletes, I feel, with 2007 birth year, and then Yoo-bin Shin born in 2006. Really, what a great way to blood your juniors, for want of a better word, and bring them into World Cup competition.
Yeah, and to be going off of lady start, I mean, for the Youth Olympics, I'm pretty sure their start goes into corner 6.
That's
correct
right.
me if I'm wrong. And even though it's only 3 more corners, they're steep corners. It's a big difference between lady start and what we call junior start, which would be where they race for the Youth Olympics.
So I've already announced her once, but I'll do it again. This is Yoo-bin Shin of Korea, our 21st slider, born in 2006, and youth Olympian from Gangwon 2024. So she's experienced big crowds on this track. She's experienced home track pressure, and she's looking good here, Veronica.
Yeah, she's looking really good. Let's see how she sticks this. It's like she knows what she's doing.
111 kilometers an hour, a little slower. But as we know in luge, the speed clock doesn't always tell the full story. As we see her go around 14, looking composed. Nice middle entrance to 15, and I think that's the best 15 we've seen so far.
Beautiful, just not scared to get the height because she knows how to stick it.
Into 19th place, Yoo-bin Shin, back by 1.5 seconds, but really pushing for that second run. A little bit, we got 4 athletes left to go.
That was, I think it's going to be the most beautiful 15 we're going to see all day.
I agree. That was absolutely textbook. As you see, she gave herself no work to do with that nice height in 15. Just dropped out and going uphill. If you don't have to steer, you can continue to build speed, or at least not lose speed by having to drive uphill.
And we talk about home ice, and I mean, when you're an experienced athlete, home ice is amazing, but you know, when you're a younger athlete, it can be quite nerve-wracking. You know, you have your friends, your family watching. It's your first time racing in, I don't want to say a real World Cup, but a senior World Cup with cameras and sponsors. It can be a lot for these young girls.
Yeah, I believe it. Okay, so Chinese, we're talking about home ice next week. Peijun Wang will get home ice advantage, but right now she's just a little far from home. This Chinese athlete, ably coached by, I mean, I've been so impressed with the Chinese team as well. I mean, they literally built up from nothing, from a fantastic talent identification program, finding real strong athletes and turning them into lugers over the last 7 years. Just fabulous.
Oh, that was a pretty nice chicane. Yeah, what I love about these athletes is they don't have the fear, which traditionally lots of athletes who start a little bit older do. They will just go run after run, you know, whether they crash or they stick it, they just keep going, and it's super, super amazing to see.
So, Peijun Wang coming in 19th place, just dropping Yu Bin Shin back onto the cusp of not getting a second run, with only 3 athletes left to go. This is turning out into a battle for this second run. It looked like Wang had a power slide into 13 there. I hope we get to see that. As we see her exit here, we just see her just skidding into 13 there. That would have cost her a lot of time, but hopefully she's done enough to get a second run with just 3 athletes left to go. As we come back up to the women's start, and we have Ji Park of Korea.
That's quite nerve-wracking to be right on the cusp, because what we don't see is after this run, the athletes are rushing back up to the top to prepare their sleds, and for me that takes about 30 minutes, and you don't have too much time between runs, so you're preparing the sled, watching the results, hoping you don't drop into the 21st place and all your rushes for nothing, but also rushing to get it done and get back at the start, get ready to just go again.
Yeah, Ji Park here looking good on home ice, just having to bring it away from the left wall before curve 8 there, as we see her transition from 8 to 9, a little too early on the height, but making it look incredibly easy, as you would expect from Ji Park on her home track. As we go to 13, 14 transition looking good as we go a little loopy through 14. And there we see that home ice advantage, 15 to 16 as well, getting the height and crossing the finish line into 22nd place, 1.9 seconds back. She's not going to get a second run. She looks angry with herself, but I've got to say, you know, born in 2008, first World Cup, I would think, and I think she acquitted herself superbly.
Yeah, I would love to see, you know, if we could overlay these amazing Korean athletes and some of the top just in corner 15 to see the height difference, because I feel like she's at least 1 sled length higher, which is a lot for us, but it's so needed.
Absolutely. Yeah, she'll be disappointed with that, but you know, it's an experienced game, this luge business, and she's got plenty more years to hone her craft and keep improving. As we go back to the top, we've got 2 more sliders to go, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ireland's Elsa Desmond.
Yeah, I think this is also her first time here in Korea, and it can be a little nerve-wracking, especially when you're a little bit, you know, maybe a little bit older than quite the young ones, but
just 2 paddles there from Elsa, just giving herself a bit more time to get into the sled. You know, sometimes that works for athletes, that if you get into your sled smoothly, you can build up as much time or close to as much time as if you put in a 3rd paddle. As Desmond goes around 8, let's see how the transition is to 9, just sliding up, feet up to the woods as she goes sideways in. She's going to have to try and stabilize this sled. Managing to make the transition into 13 to 14, hopefully going to give her time to breathe, get her back on track as we go 14 to 15 with Elsa Desmond. Power sliding as well, feet up the curve. Bit of a tough day at the office for Elsa Desmond here, but as you say, only 7 or 9 training runs. It's quite a lot to ask for some of these athletes.
Yeah, and I would say maybe she wasn't quite edged up high enough. You only get so many runs, and you have to try to set up the sled and figure it out yourself. And sometimes, you know, you don't know if it's your driving or the sled. And when you don't have the runs or the experience on the track, you do your best. But this track is definitely more forgiving than it was 7 years ago. Something like this, unfortunately, 7 years ago would have not ended as pretty, but...
Well, we all remember Emily Sweeney's crash in the 2018 Olympics in that curve, and I think were I still inadvisedly on a luge sled, that would possibly sometimes be in the back of my mind, looking at the exit of the Dragon's Tail as we come to our final athlete of this 25-athlete field. This is Huilan Hu of China.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see her so far back in the Nations Cup. She must have had a big mistake because she's a strong athlete. They were not in the Whistler World Championships. They were at home training for that home World Cup that's coming up next week. So I'm hoping she can put down a clean run and we can see, big mistakes out of 9.
Very close to the wood there. Just trying to get the sled back under control through here.
This is very uncharacteristic for her. She has been killing it this season. So we'll see her. I don't think we'll see her for a second.
Tough run through curve 16, crossing the finish line with a 48.665 into 23rd place, just over 2 seconds back, Huilan Hu. But yeah, that was a tough day as well for Hu.
That was tough, and I'm excited to see her next week in China in her home track. She is an amazing slider. This run was not like the season she's been having.
Well, that's it, and I think for smallish luge nations, not that China's a small nation by any means, but in luge terms, having that home advantage is so great to see, just as a confidence builder for a lot of these athletes, isn't it?
Yeah, and I find it kind of shows you, in a way, how they are as athletes when they know the track, because when we go to these European tracks, most of the athletes from Europe, they've been sliding those tracks since they're 7, 8 years old.
So our leader, Lisa Schulter, in second place, Hannah Prock, 2 Austrians, and then Merle Frabel in bronze medal position after this first run. Madeleine Egler, the world leader, in 4th place, and uncharacteristically, on the second page of the results, we see Julia Taubitz, the only person who can really challenge for Madeleine Egler's title. Julia Taubitz having to work some magic in the second run. As we see our final few, so getting a second run, Yubin Shin, she stayed on the cusp as expected. Peijun Wang gets a second run from China as well. Good to see those nations in the second run of this Women's World Cup race. So we will be back very soon. We've got about 35 minutes track prep to come up. That was an impressive first run.
Yeah, I think they all did, honestly, I want to say much, much better than I remember in that track. They all pretty much stuck exit 9. There was a couple skids, but nothing major.
So coming up at 6:55, that's local Korean time, we have the second run of the women's singles. We're going to be back. Veronica's going to be joining me in about 35 minutes. So get yourself a coffee, cup of tea, or something lovely to drink and a snack, and we'll see you right back here in 35 minutes for run number 2 of this, well, incredibly exciting EBERSPÄCHER Luge World Cup from PyeongChang.